Really busy time of year with back to school for many around the country has started or soon to go back. So thank you for joining us today to learn just kind of what's new with Bookshare and some tips to get you started off on the right foot for the 2024-2025 school year. So we have a lot of things to cover today. Again, this Bookshare was for current users, but I will do just a really quick Bookshare overview in case there is someone who is joined us today that is brand new to Bookshare. We will be doing a more Bookshare overview 101 in depth in the next week or so. That will be that real getting started, but I'll do a quick overview. And we're going to touch on some points that have come up a lot over the years, some clarification on Bookshare qualifications. I will show you our newly updated and refreshed website, show you where you can find the resources that you need to utilize Bookshare, as well as some new content on our site about some tips about using Bookshare in your classroom, how to really implement it in the classroom. And also some tips on successful Bookshare implementation district-wide. And I will also show you some tips on how to enhance the digital voices on the common devices that your students are using to read Bookshare books. I've been with Bookshare for about 11 years now, and we hear over and over again that some students don't like the digital voices. They have improved a lot over the years, but we have some new suggestions based on just changes in technology that can help enhance the devices that you're already using. So just the quick Bookshare overview. Bookshare is an online library of over 1 million ebooks, including textbooks, with each title being available in an alternative accessible format. Every title can be accessed as an audio file, audio with highlighted digital text, Braille, and large print. So that is that accessibility piece for the students who do require accessible materials. Every book can be accessed in the file format that works best for them. Maybe they want to sometimes listen to books, sometimes read books. Maybe a student just needs larger print. So super customizable to meet the needs of your students. Best of all, Bookshare is free for all qualified U.S. students of any age, and that is thanks to our funding by the U.S. Department of Education, Office of Special Education Programs. So Bookshare is always free for schools and students. The library contains textbooks, books for assigned and pleasure reading, all the literary classics that students read as they go through school, New York Times bestsellers, award winners, career and technical training materials. It's not just for K-12, it's for students of any age. Study guides for all the common tests like the GED, the SATs, the LSATs, the MCATs, the dummy guides, just all of those materials that a student needs to read for school. Most of the books are voiced with the voice built into the device, but we do also have a new collection of human narrated titles, about 3,000 or so of them that for all ages and all genres. I will be later pointing out where you can find those because we are hearing that people don't know that we have those. So that's just another great feature. And the Bookshare books are read on devices that your students already have access to: computers, Chromebooks, smartphones, tablets, Braille, refreshable Braille devices, Braille note takers, the devices that they have at school and home. And the Bookshare books are available 24/7, 365 days a year. There's no cutoff times where students can't access their books. They're in the cloud. They are always available. So that's the kind of what is Bookshare and what would you find in the collection. And now to really touch on some points about who is eligible. So we operate under copyright law, not special education law. And the copyright law says that a person with a visual impairment, a reading or learning disability, or a physical disability that prevents them from interacting with traditional print, that these students who have one of these, three things going on, or, people of any age, they are entitled versions of published works. So I put, kind of in big letters, IEP 504 not required. I cannot stress that enough. Again, we hear this all the time, that people are under the assumption that a student needs an IEP. That is entirely not true. They don't need an IEP. They don't need a 504. There's not a specific diagnosis that is required. It is basically what the law states is the professional, and that is you, the teachers, assistive technology professionals, special educators, occupational therapists, reading specialists, dyslexia interventionist, school librarian, any school personnel who is working with a student or has reviewed evaluations of them that have been done by another school professional, that shows that they are, they're reading below grade level. They're really having trouble with reading despite having appropriate, reading instruction and reading interventions. If these are the type of students, when it comes to the reading or learning disability, that you can think, okay, maybe by having the content in other formats, that will really help them with learning the materials that they need to learn. So again, IEP or 504 is not required. Many of our members do have one or the other, but many don't. And so again, I just really want to emphasize that point. It's not about a diagnosis. We get questions all the time. My student has ADHD, or they have autism, or they have, we think they might have dyslexia, but they've not been diagnosed. None of those labels or diagnoses matter. And I know sometimes it's confusing because when you've worked in the special education system, you have your list of diagnoses or labels that qualify someone for special education, but Bookshare is not a special education program, although it's used quite widely in special education. But again, it's the copyright law that makes this determination that people who have these challenges, we always said it was to reading traditional printed, like a physical book, but now so much is digital. But static text on a screen is not accessible. Something that is digital does not necessarily make it accessible. So when it comes to those students who are struggling with reading, they're reading below grade level, you'll find they often have problems with decoding, problems with reading comprehension, consistent reading and spelling errors, poor fluency, they read very slowly and inaccurately. Sometimes these are the students who are, they receive supports through an RTI or MTSS program. There's a link here to other symptoms of dyslexia, which there are a myriad of signs and symptoms that appear in early childhood even. So there's a lot of things that could be going on that, would maybe give you pause to think, I think this student could qualify. So again, you as the educator working with them, you have the authority to add them, to give them access to Bookshare, to add them to a Bookshare account, to facilitate that process. You don't need formal evaluation, don't need to wait till that's done. Again, you are the experts working with these kids, and you see that. And I will, you'll be getting a copy of the presentation, so anything you see linked here, you will be able to easily access. So for these students, sometimes there has been a formal evaluation that indicates a need for a reading accommodation, such as digital or audiobooks, text-to-speech, Braille or large print. Those are sometimes the words that are in an evaluation. But again, like I mentioned, an evaluation is not required. It's up to the professionals working with the students, and that is what you are on, with your best professional judgment, saying that the student would benefit from having their materials in accessible formats. If you have questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A box. Definitely we'll have some time at the end to revisit those questions. So just put them in as I go through the presentation. So that's kind of just the Bookshare overview. But a big part of what we wanted this webinar today was to show you our new website. It went live in May of this year, but some people were already out of school or at that end of the year where you're so busy wrapping things up, maybe didn't have a chance to really explore it. And we want to make sure people know where to find the resources that they need to fully utilize Bookshare, so like the Help and Learning Center. We have a new Explore page that can help you find content. We have some new what we call hub that really can help educators ideas to think about how can I use Bookshare in the classroom. And then again, I mentioned about those enhanced voice options that can just help, maybe make that little difference for when you do hear that someone doesn't like a voice. There are some alternatives that can make a difference with improving the quality of voices. So I'm going to go and share my screen. Okay, so you now should, here, first I'll start with the Bookshare website. So as you might have seen, if you've gone to bookshare.org, it looks different, it kind of a more modern feel, but some of the navigation is different. At the top, we have a little, you can read an article about the new site and what's coming. There will be changes coming to the actual platform where you add students and assign books that will be coming later this year or early next year. But I am going to log in as a teacher so you can see what's changed and what hasn't changed. So I logged in as a teacher, as a sponsor. The My Bookshare page looks exactly the same. But when you are on the home page and you're logged in, there would be your name. There's your My Bookshare page, your account, which just has information about your email and your account information, and then the Help and Learning Center. The easiest way to get to that, it would either be from when you're on the home page to get to that, or when you are on your My Bookshare page, you can just select Help. So the Help and Learning Center is now where all of our, help articles, FAQs, there's some videos in there. You might notice that there's some of the videos we used to have aren't there. That's because as the app actually changes, as the platform changes, we'll be updating those. But the Help and Learning Center is where you can come to find answers to frequently asked questions. These are the ones, we looked at all of our customer support cases. These are the most common questions. How do I reset my password is probably our number one question. Who qualifies for Bookshare? Again, that is something that we get asked a lot. So on this main Who Qualifies page, you'll see it's very simple. Just like I mentioned, it's the learning or reading disabilities. We say such as dyslexia, but again, that is not required. Some students have specific learning disabilities. Some students have nothing. It's just notice that they have some of the common characteristics. Maybe they would be diagnosed if they went through that full evaluation. There's a lot of reasons why a kid might not ever have that full evaluation. Some schools have year-plus waiting lists just to have an AT evaluation. Again, with Bookshare, you don't need to wait for that. You can give them access if you think it would help them and they have been struggling with reading. Again, visual impairments, blindness, low vision, any other vision issue does not need a specific type of vision loss or level of vision loss. Physical disability, where a student can't hold a book and turn the pages. So we try to make this as easy and straightforward as possible. So this is the main qualification pages. And then we also have more in-depth Bookshare qualifications for students, sort of which I just showed on the previous slide. Some of the signs to look out for that might give you a clue that your student is dealing with a learning or reading challenge. So these are good links that to kind of refer back to, or when you're sharing Bookshare information with your colleagues, you can point them to. And again, these will all be linked in the PowerPoint so you can easily find them. And again, further linked on that page, who can certify Bookshare eligibility. We list some examples of professionals that you would find in schools or outside of schools. Again, these are just examples. It is not an inclusive list, but it's the type of professionals who you would commonly find in a school who would be working with a student who has demonstrated some reading issues, or that has, it's been noted that they need an accommodation. So I wanted to point out that, and again, that is all linked from the main help and learning page. So these are just some quick ways to find that information. How do I request a book? We have 1.4 million titles, but there are books you might need for a student that we don't have. We have the book request form that you would fill out. So again, none of this has changed from what you might have been familiar with already. Just things have been moved around a little bit. So I wanted to point those out. And also when you select one of these frequently asked topics, at the bottom, you'll see there's some similar articles that are, that similar topic. You can also search by topic. So we have groups of the FAQ articles, the help articles, that when you click on read books, it will pull up all the help articles about reading books. And the search results will appear just in the order of when the article was published on the site. There's not, so you might just have to sort through. But when you select one of those boxes, you can also see there's a list of all the topics that we have help articles for. So I'll go ahead and, I mentioned about the voices. We'll go into it a little more in depth in a bit, but you would select voices. There's 2 help articles that have information about ways to enhance the voices. So we tried to put in the topics here that are most commonly asked about. Click on Braille, and there's the help articles about how do you read Bookshare books on Braille. There are a lot of different Braille devices, models and manufacturers. We try to provide the information that you would need for whatever type of device a student might be using. Further down on the page, we have what are called our learning articles. These are more in depth. The help articles are kind of FAQs, list of steps for doing one Bookshare process. The learning articles are more in depth, and this is where we have some new content that we're excited about. We do have a new version of the ABCs of Bookshare for Educators, which we've had on our site for a couple of years. And this is, if you just need one link to either remember how to do something Bookshare related, or if you have a colleague who is new to Bookshare, the ABCs of Bookshare Educators is kind of the one stop where you can learn, everything from why would a student even need Bookshare? It goes into that some students do have a need for accessible education materials. There's a nice little video with a real Bookshare user. So say you're like, great, I can use this in my school or my district. Next step would be to sign up if your school or district doesn't already have an account. And again, the accounts can be created at a school or district level. And we have over 45,000 accounts nationwide. So there's a good chance there might be one for your school or district. So if you're not sure, you might want to check with your assistive technology team or special education or vision department. It's, easier if there's, if you don't create an account when one always exists, but there's, no reason that you can't, but you might want to just check first. So this just has some information about signing up. The sign up is just all done on our website. It's very easy, fill in a couple lines of information. And so the ABCs walk you through all the steps, signing up. Then you're going to add your colleagues, who we call sponsors, teachers, educators, or sponsors. You're going to add your student members. So this will tell you, how to do that. And then again, the Bookshare books have to be assigned. Students can only read what's assigned to them. And again, when we do the Bookshare 101 webinar in September, we'll go, really demonstrate all of that for people who want to revisit that. all the different ways of searching for a book, the advanced search, the explore, the book request. So the ABCs is a great resource to kind of keep bookmarked and refer back to as you go through your Bookshare journey. Again, in the ABCs, the different ways to read Bookshare books. We have our Bookshare Reader, which is the Bookshare Reader for web, which is for computers and Chromebooks. I'll do a quick demo of that, showing one of the ways of enhancing the voices. We also have our Bookshare Reader for mobile, for iOS and Android devices. And so when you click on these links, there's the video tutorials as well as information about reading books with either the web or mobile version. And then we have our AT partner tools. You might remember on the former site, we have the Reading Tool Wizard. The AT Partners page is what has replaced that Reading Tool Wizard. So this is where you would come and then you can filter the tools by platform. So say you have an iOS device, it shows you, Dolphin Easy Reader is an app. It's a free app for iOS. Voice Dream is another one. Say, students use Chromebooks. And again, these are the tools in addition to the Bookshare Reader. So these are what we call our AT partners. They're third-party companies that integrate with Bookshare. Dolphin makes a version for Chromebooks. There's also Capty Personal. So if you were familiar with using the Reading Tool Wizard, this is the new version of that again. So I wanted to point that out. Braille Note Touch, and then we have links to the main manufacturers of those tools. So all of this can be found in the that ABCs of Bookshare for Educators, which is under it's on the Help and Learning page. It's just you have to scroll down a bit to the learning articles section. So while I'm here, I would like to point out the implementation hub for educators and families. This is a new section that we created in response to, hearing from educators, like they weren't quite visualizing, how can I use Bookshare in the classroom? You're used to making lesson plans and doing things with books or maybe other digital products that are integrated into your learning management system. But, Bookshare is a separate program, but it certainly can be used in the classroom just as you would with any other book or content. So we created this implementation hub, struggling with that word today, and it's for educators, and it's also something you can share with families. When they're reading at home with their kids, these are some easy strategies that a family doesn't have to be someone, a teacher's, that they can really engage with their child, sitting down with the computer or app on a device and pulling up the Bookshare book, and then doing some of these strategies, before reading, during, after reading. And when you select these links, it just goes to some more information, some ideas about some of the reading strategies that are kind of tried and true. And these were put together by educators, classroom educators. So, we hope that resonates and that you find it useful if you're just looking for some ideas. On this page, there's also some information for families. We have a video for parents about getting started with Bookshare. One thing we hear often is, kids are using Bookshare in school, but the parents might not necessarily know that they're using it. And we really found this to be true in the pandemic when kids were at home and suddenly know their username and password, or they didn't even know how to navigate the site and read the books. So we really encourage you to share information with your families. Make sure they have their child's username and password so they can log in with them at home or over holiday breaks or summer breaks, and that they're comfortable navigating the website and logging in as their child or sitting with their child while they log in and finding books. Because again, Bookshare is not just a resource to use during the school day. It's available 24/7, 365 days a year for students, for everybody. So it's certainly a great resource that parents can, reinforce reading. And when kids are given that individual membership, having that added on to their school account, which is, very easy to do, it's free. By adding that individual membership, it gives them that benefit of being able to search the collection on their own and read what they want without waiting for the teacher to actually assign it to them. They want to read Harry Potter, they want to read a book about a hobby they have. They can sit, parents can sit with their kids and talk about, what are you interested? What do you want to read about? And help them find books that might really get them really excited about reading, especially when they can fully customize it to the way that they want and that works for them. New content also includes resources for early childhood educators and families of young children. That's another topic that we realized we didn't have a lot of material for. So we've been working on letting people know that, in addition to having content for pre-K, early childhood, we have partnered with a group called STEMI that is really focusing on developing knowledge base around early childhood. You can read more about their work, including more STEM book, for this young age. It's never too young to start kids learning about STEM. That is sort of the future of the workforce. It's something that kids with disabilities have often been excluded because so much of STEM book is, technical and graphs and formulas that traditionally haven't been accessible for these students who need accessible materials. So one big push of Benetech, the company that runs Bookshare, is to increase our overall STEM collection and making sure it's accessible. So people with a reading barrier, there's no reason that they couldn't go into a STEM career. And also starting that STEM education at an early age. So there are STEM books for, early childhood age. So we have more information there about working with young readers if that is something that you do in your daily work. So again, all of that can be accessed through that main Help and Learning Center under the Learning Articles section. And there is a link to see all the learning articles. Again, that they're not organized in any particular way, but you can see them. And then there's the topics as well. So that was probably one of the big, main changes of when we revamped our site, is that Help and Learning Center, and tried to make it easier to find everything. Another big change is you might have been familiar with, under the search bar, when you were searching for books in the library, we had the browse link. Now that content that you found under the browse link, which was primarily our special collections, the New York Times bestsellers and the Lexile levels and leveled readers, that is now under Explore Our Library. This is where you will come to search. Again, same as before, search. You could search by title, author, or ISBN. We also have some quick links to the advanced search, where you can put in a number of different criteria to find a more narrow search. And then here is where you can find our human narrated books. And as I mentioned earlier, the human narrated books are for all ages. They were gifted to us by a publisher, so we didn't request which titles would be human narrated versus the text-to-speech. But I think if you look through it, and on the advanced search page, you can search for human narrated and filter by topic or grade level. And it'll be a little easier to find, because again, these are books for children and adults. You can further search, under literature, but show you on the advanced search page, you can also search for them. It was a little slow this morning. Under books to search, there's a human narrated, and say, it's like a third grade reading level. Oops, maybe or you could say might be easier, children's books. I wonder why. I know they usually come, oh, let me remove the grade. Here we go. Let's see, we have 197 children's books, and these are voiced by professional narrators, some with British accents. So it might be if you're looking just for some books for your kids to listen to, especially if they're new to Bookshare and maybe they're being a little resistant to the text-to-speech voices. Human narrated books might be a good place to start. On the Explore page, this is where we have, the New York Times, fiction, nonfiction, popular teens, popular kids. These are updated frequently by our collections development team. What's new on Bookshare? Featured books. This is where, if it's a certain history month for a certain topic, we'll have those books, current events. If there's been an award, new book award category, we'll have those books. And then under categories, this is where we have books for different audiences. So for educators, the accelerated reader list, this is, if you are using books in the accelerated reader, then you can filter them by the different levels that they have given to their books. I know that's in some districts. Whoops, went back too far. Some districts use those. Go back down to educators. The books by Lexile, the leveled readers. We have a lot of different leveled reader collections. Fontes and Pinnell, the I Can Reads, HMH leveled readers, National Geographic for Kids. So these are those collections of books. Educators sometimes might be using a leveled reader with their students. So the Explore page is just a great resource to come to see. It gives you an idea of what's in the collection. There's the books in Spanish, disability themes, award winners, and these change. These get updated over time by our collection development team. The NIMAC list, the National Instructional Materials Access Center, are those subset of books that are limited to students who have IEPs, but for I believe 40 of the 50 states, Bookshare is an authorized user of the NIMAC. So if you're in one of those 40 states, you can just easily get those books directly through our collection. So that Explore page, it still sometimes is labeled Browse in some places, but that will take you to Explore, where you can see the different collections. And again, these are updated frequently. There's also a browse by language. We have books in a large variety of language. With Spanish, you'll see 42,000 Spanish books available for people in the United States. So if you have students who that is their native language, they can read books in Spanish. Go back to the My Bookshare page. So again, as you can see on the My Bookshare page, nothing has changed as of yet. That will be coming later this year or next year is what is scheduled. You'll have you'll have advance notice of that. But again, everything is the same, your member roster and where you add your sponsors. So that is sort of the overview of the Help and Learning Center and where you would come to find the information. I did mention about the voices. So let me go to, and we have two help articles that address the voice issue. So I know in just the 11 years that I've been with Bookshare, the voices have improved quite a bit for some devices, not all, but they're getting more lifelike. With AI, I think we'll continue to see changes, improvements in voices. But we did want to point out that there are some easy hacks, tricks to get some of these that people might not be aware of using just the devices they're already using. And except for one example, it's just things that you can do, go into the settings. So if you're reading on a PC and using the Bookshare Reader for Web, and I'll demonstrate this in a second, what we have found to be the best voices is the Microsoft Edge browser. Now, I know, unfortunately, a lot of schools use Chromebooks and you can't download Edge on the Chromebook. But if you're using a PC, and maybe your student maybe at home, maybe they use a Chromebook at school, but the family has a PC at home, you might want to explore. And if you have a PC, check out the Edge browser. Microsoft has made a line of what they call their natural voices that are only, though, available when you're in the Edge browser. If you're on a PC and using Chrome, the voices don't appear there. That's Microsoft wanting people to use their Edge browser. So this help article on the maximizing the voices, just will tell a little bit about that, about using the Edge browser. Also, if you're on, so that's one suggestion if they have access to the Edge browser. And then there's also an extension called Read and Write that you may be familiar with. It used to be called Read and Write for Google. There's now a Read and Write version available for Windows, Chromebooks, Macs even, and an iOS version. Read and Write is a third-party tool developed by a company called TextHelp. In the pandemic, they made it available free for educators, but I believe now there is a cost. But it is it's a toolbar that has a lot of features that support literacy. So doesn't have content, and also hopefully be able to demonstrate. I have just the free version of it, but I'll show you what that's like. It will voice anything on a screen. So a lot of districts use it as part of their UDL initiative by wanting to have students have audio options, all the students, not just those who need it for accessibility reasons. But within that toolbar, there's a drop-down box of voices that are higher quality than what is built into the PCs, outside of the Edge browser, or what's built into a Chromebook. So Read and Write is a great tool. If you're not familiar with it, you might want to look into it, see if your districts can purchase license for it. It's a tool that any student can use. But it is particularly helpful for students with learning and reading disabilities because it provides, the highlighting and the audio. It also has great vocabulary support, screen masking for students that really need to just focus on a small section of the text. It can mask the screen. Their students can dictate into it and hear themselves reading back, or they can dictate notes, send it to the teacher via email, or they can annotate. So it can be used with the Bookshare reader. The toolbar just overlays at the top of the screen, and so they'll be reading, getting the Bookshare content, but hearing it voiced by the Read and Write toolbar, which, is a preferable voice to many people. So we do have an article. That's the second article about voices. How do I read Bookshare using the Read and Write? We have links to the company that makes it, that talks about the different versions available, and just some more information you can read about all the features of Read and Write. We don't endorse really any products but just, we do hear that it's a very useful, and educators in districts around the country, we know they're using it with Bookshare. You can download Bookshare books as an EPUB file and put it on a student's Google Drive, and they can read it with that Read and Write toolbar directly in their Google Drive. There are some places that don't want students logging into a external website. So a lot of options of using Read and Write with Bookshare. On mobile devices, if your students have access to iOS or Android devices, there are some tips of adding. Apple makes what they call enhanced and premium voices. They're free. I didn't know that I have an iPhone. I didn't know that they existed. But you go into the accessibility settings on the iOS device. And here we have some instructions for finding. You just download them to the phone or tablet, and then they appear as one of the voice options when you open the Bookshare Reader app and you go to that audio tab. You see all the voices, the ones they either have like a parentheses that say enhance or premium. They're a little higher quality than just what is automatically there. So you might want to check that out if you have, an iPhone, and anyone can download that. And then for Android devices, they vary a little bit more because there's different manufacturers of Android devices, but they all have also accessibility options under the settings. It just might be worded a little differently on the different devices. And then there's some information about Google has their own text-to-speech engine. There's third party that you can add. So we created this page just to give people a little more idea of what options there are to really enhance the reading experience. So I'm going to go back. So first I'll show you, and I can't guarantee that the read and write is going to work because I do not have the paid version of it, but we'll see. So you access it, there's when you download the extension, it puts a little icon on your screen. I have a book open in Bookshare Reader. And if you have the read and write toolbar, you would see it at the top of your screen. They have, and you can kind of move it around under settings, under speech. There's options for different voices, a lot of different language that they support. And they have something called hover speech. It's that little bubble, and you can kind of point to a character. And again, I have found it doesn't really work well over Zoom. And again, I just have the trial version. Sometimes I've had luck if I highlight and then, oops, and say speech.
For Mrs. Hall's baby shower, Jessica shows up with such a big bunch of flowers from her father's florist shop that you'd swear she ripped a bush out of.
So it worked. So that is reading with the voice built into the read and write extension. But if I just go into the Bookshare settings, so I am in a Google Chrome browser right now. What is available to me is the 3 legacy voices that Microsoft has had forever, plus the Google US English. The Google US English, some people prefer that.
For Mrs. Hall's baby shower, Jessica shows up with such a big.
So that's the Google English voice, which it actually, what they provide now as the Google English voice, I find has gotten better than it was even just a couple years ago. So I'm going to go and back to my Edge browser. Oops. Okay, great. Back in Edge. I'm going to log in as a student so I can read a book. Sure, hopefully you were able to hear the sound on the other. Sometimes the sound sharing goes off. So I am now logged in as a student. Here's one of my assigned books. And when I go into the settings, you'll see, and I'm in the Edge browser, they have these line of natural voices, and they have them with different, here's all the English books, English voices for different accents and dialects. If you're reading a book in Spanish, they will show the natural voices that are in Spanish. So you can play a sample.
The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog.
So I think with these
The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog.
They're more lifelike sounding, and Microsoft is constantly adding new ones and updating them. So that is just, I wanted to kind of point out the differences of how you see the voices that you can select from on a computer or Chromebook. And if you can use the Edge browser, that's where you're going to get the highest quality voices. But again, we know that when students are using Chromebooks and or if they can't download the Edge browser for whatever reason, that's not an option. But again, maybe at home, and maybe when you're meeting with parents on back to school nights or parent teacher conferences, you can ask that, hey, do you have the Edge browser installed? Can you install it? And you will be able to have that better, the better voices. Go back to the PowerPoint. So kind of gave you that website tour, the Help and Learning Center, the Explore page, Implementation Hub, and the Enhanced Voice options. One other thing I wanted to share before we get to some questions, I see there's quite a few. We have really been, kind of looking at the Bookshare accounts, system-wide that have been extremely successful with current, active use, year after year, accounts, never becoming dormant. And we've kind of identified some characteristics of these accounts that we thought would be useful to share, especially if you are a district level employee, maybe in the assistive technology or special ed or VI department, who kind of owns Bookshare in your district. What we have found is that those accounts that are really successful, they have someone who is a designated Bookshare leader. In some cases, it's a major part of that person's job. They are there to implement Bookshare. Others, it's just a task on a full plate already, but it is one of those tasks. But someone who kind of takes control, that is that point person that educators in the district can come to with Bookshare questions. Maybe they actively go out and promote Bookshare, but really having someone who's a Bookshare leader, or even better if there's more than one, who we found that they have created a district level account. Some districts have accounts for each school building. In a large district, that could mean, 400 accounts. The problem with school level accounts is there might just be 1, 2, 3, educators on that account using it with the handful of students who need Bookshare access. They leave, they retire, the accounts can go dormant, and then people lose access. New educators come in, and they don't know that there's already a Bookshare account. They might not know about Bookshare. When that account is created at a district level and students from all the schools are added and educators from all the schools are added, it's a lot more easier to manage, and it's easier to, when students move from elementary to middle to high school, they don't lose access. If they're on a school account at the elementary school, when they go to middle school, they have to be manually added to that account. Maybe the middle school doesn't have an account because they've never used Bookshare before. That student then loses their access. On a district level account, they have access as they go throughout their education program up to when they graduate. And if there's someone at that district level administrator who is kind of managing it, they know when educators leave and like, oh, well, this person used to be the special ed chair at that school. They have retired. Now it's this person. Let me make sure I get them added as a sponsor. So someone really managing the account, removing students and sponsors who are no longer there. So keeping that account up to date. That is found to be beneficial and sustainable in the long run. These Bookshare leaders, they also assist with account setup and ongoing support. They help teachers identify their qualified students. They might even sit there and add them. Teachers in the classroom are so busy. If they're told, oh, you have a student in your class this year who needs Bookshare, here's, quick overview of Bookshare, now add them. It's just an extra step when the teacher already is, so busy, especially at the start of the new year. If someone at that district level can add the student and also identify, might have access to the databases that show, which students require accommodations such as Bookshare. Add them to the roster. Let the teacher know, you have now been added as a sponsor, your student's been added. Also add the educators who support these students. And in some cases, some of these district level champions, as we like to call them, have even created the grade level reading list of the required text. So what are the texts that every first grader needs to use? They create those reading lists in Bookshare, let the teachers know, hey, you could subscribe to that to add your students, or even doing that for them. The students then have access to at least that core group of reading materials that are required for the year. Creating those lists takes a bit of time. So again, asking a teacher to do that in addition to what they're doing, in their period, their classes that, go nonstop throughout the day, that can really take some of that pressure off the teacher and just get it ready for them to get their students access to those books. These leaders also, conduct training and professional development. This can be formal or informal. If the district has a PD day, they might do a breakout session on Bookshare. They might schedule half an hour to sit with the teacher and show them how you add students and assign books, showing them how the students read with Bookshare Reader. And they might have like a virtual office hours once a month. But many districts, they have implemented this, and it really helps people feel comfortable with using Bookshare. They also help promote parent engagement. We do have on our site, we have kind of like a one-pager that teachers can give to parents, or just, helping. They really make sure that teachers are relaying the information about Bookshare to parents. So that's just another kind of missing piece that hasn't always been there, is that parents really becoming engaged with Bookshare and learning about it so they can use it with their kids at home. So these are just some tips. If, again, especially for you, people who are district level employees and maybe are in the departments that manage Bookshare, these are just some things to think about. And maybe you have the bandwidth to do one, two, of these things are all great, but just some things to consider that can help really promote Bookshare uses. Here's some links. You'll have the access to these before I go to the questions. I did want to point out we have a new training module created in part with the Iris Center at University of Vanderbilt. It takes about 2 hours to go through. It's about Bookshare and accessible materials for students with print disabilities, and they do offer 2 hours of continuing education credits if you take, and it's free if you take that. So it's a lot more in depth than typically our webinars. So I really encourage you to check that out. You'll have the link in the presentation. Someone has asked, are you taking attendance? We will have the availability to give you a certificate of attendance for everyone who participated in the full webinar. So that will be in the email that gets sent out with the recording. Someone asked, does this include dyslexia or anything similar to that? I assume that's in regard to the qualifications. Yes, students with dyslexia, Bookshare is a great resource for them. But again, they do not need that diagnosis, but any type of learning or reading barrier that they have that is interfering with them to read, to decode, to comprehend their grade level content can be given access to Bookshare. There's a couple questions about English language learners. So English language learners are not eligible just on the basis that they are an English language learner. It is expected that when they have a better mastery of English, they will have no trouble reading. Now, there are students who are English language learners that maybe in their native language have trouble with decoding and comprehension, or have a visual impairment or a physical disability. They can be given access to Bookshare. But students who are just learning English language, no, they are eligible. Excuse me. There are a lot of other digital and audiobook resources out there, from your public library, other websites and resources that you can use with them if you feel that having audiobooks would help them. But Bookshare, again, is for students that there's something going on with them. Again, it's maybe they have something diagnosed or identified, that maybe they've been given a label of some sort, but that is not required. just the professionals working with them have determined that, yes, there's something going on that is interfering with their reading, their comprehension, their learning, and having the audio, the highlighted audio with digital text, or just large print or braille for visual impairments, or for students with physical disabilities that can't use their hand and maybe use an eye gate or switch access. Those are the students that you could say, okay, so obviously the visual and physical is a little more apparent, but for the learning and reading, it's really up to if you feel that, it's demonstrated that they have a problem and you feel this would be an accommodation that would help them. Yes, you will be receiving copies of the slides and so on. Someone asked how many facilitators can be on the accounts. Each Bookshare account can have as many sponsors, educators, and as many members as you wish. There's no limit. We have large district accounts that have over 7,000 students on them. So there is actually, absolutely no limit on how many can be on the account. Someone asked, they looked at Bookshare, can they see what the students are reading? That's a great question. So again, since Bookshare operates under the copyright law, only people that have the reading or learning, the issue that is preventing them from reading traditional print can see the content. So we hear from teachers, they want to preview the book, learn how to use it. What we say in those cases, you can log in as one of your students to preview the settings and how the book displays and so forth. So that's a workaround. Yes, someone asked, can I share this with my fellow teachers? Yes, please do. Share the information with them. Let them know about Bookshare. You'll be receiving emails about our next webinar that will be coming up. That will be more of the real, getting started overview. Please share that with them. I know that someone mentioned that a previous slide said an evaluation needs to be done. No, please, no evaluation needs to be done. That is sort of a people have often thought they need the full special ed or any type of evaluation. No, it's just anyone who has been working with their students. You see them day in and day out. They're struggling. Maybe they are receiving some additional supports. But even if it's just you witnessing how they read, about reading, how students learn to read as a teacher, and you see they are not retaining the information. They have problems with comprehension or decoding, constantly struggling. That is all in your mind to think, okay, I can try giving the student access to Bookshare and seeing how we do with that. Sometimes it's very obvious. Having someone listen to the book, they can give you an overview of what they just read in great detail, but giving them the printed book to have them read it, they couldn't tell you because they can't, the decoding and comprehension, they're just struggling so hard to try to decode. So again, I hope there was nothing was stated that you need, they have to have an evaluation. And that goes for assistive technology in general. That's another myth. Any teacher can determine that their student needs assistive technology to help them access their course level. A couple other questions. They have a Spanish immersion program. Yes, we have, I believe it's 45,000 books in Spanish available to people in the United States. And I know I've worked with other districts that have Spanish and French immersion programs, and they've been able to get books. They have students in those programs who have learning or reading challenges. And so yes, definitely you can get those books in Spanish and they will be voiced in Spanish. So they see the text in Spanish and hear it as well. Oh, great question. And I think this is where some of the confusion over the years has come about the IEP or 504. When you add a new member on that pop-up box, there are check boxes for IEP or 504. Yes, you would leave those blank for a student who does not have either. If you look at it, there's no star denoting that those boxes are required the way they are with the name and birth date and so forth. Those are just there. It's somewhat for tracking purposes for the Office of Special Education Programs, who funds us, but also for students with IEPs, they have access to a subset of textbooks and curriculum materials that are in the National Instructional Materials Access Center. That's a repository of textbooks established under special education law, IDEA. Students with IEPs have access to those, but those who don't do not. So if they have an IEP, go ahead and check it. But if they have neither, it's fine to just leave that blank. Yes, another question about a diagnosis. That is correct. They do not need to have a diagnosis, but they qualify if they have reading challenges that is identified by you as a teacher, or if there's a reading specialist or an AT specialist or a special educator if they have done an evaluation. Anyone that has worked with a student and has determined they have a reading challenge can be given access regardless of having a diagnosis or not. It's about what their abilities, not the label or diagnosis. And so no, when you add a new student, there's 3 boxes. You're saying, I am attesting my student has a learning disability, a visual impairment, or a physical disability. LD, VI, PD, I think is how it's stated there. So even though it might say learning disability, just don't think of it like special education disability that requires a diagnosis. It's the learning or reading challenge, coding, comprehension, the really struggling with reading. There's, a whole host of signs and symptoms associated, that are maybe suggest dyslexia, but a student could have some of them, not be officially diagnosed with dyslexia, but they're still struggling with reading. They still need the same accommodations. So you check the LD box, and that is you saying that they have the reading or learning challenge. Someone also asked about having students with intellectual disabilities eligible. And again, within that, someone labeled with having an intellectual disability, there's a wide range. Some students, maybe with an accommodation like Bookshare, would be able to learn the content, others won't. So again, it's up to you as a professional to determine if that student you're working with would be able to listen to the book, or having the audio and highlighting, if that would help them access the content, if it would really truly be the game changer. So again, not dependent on a label, a diagnosis, or so forth. Someone asked, how can we block inappropriate book choices for popping up when searching? Well, anyone under 18, nothing that is labeled adult content will ever show up. I'm not sure if inappropriate is maybe in your area or district. There's certain books that have been labeled. So I'm not sure. You'll have my email address at the end if you want to, provide a specific book title or something. But students can search. They cannot read books that haven't been assigned to them. But yes, they can search the collection. Nothing labeled adult content will show up. But again, what might be considered inappropriate, for some might not be for others. We're a content neutral library, just like any other library. We are looking into removing the search feature for students who are on their school accounts, because this is something we are hearing more. So, you might kind of stay tuned. That might be a change. We're exploring that. But for now, if you're concerned about students searching the collection, they can't read the book, but even seeing the synopsis, perhaps don't give them the username and password, but then that would require you to find the book and open it and hand them the device. Adult themes. So again, adult titles that are not labeled, and by adult content, that's sort of like, an R-rated movie. It's found to have, violence or sexual themes, drug use. These are determinations that the publishers make, just like a movie director says a movie is an R or PG. We don't have control over that. So anything labeled adult content under 18 can never, it won't even show up in their search. But yes, there might be books that are written for adults that are not labeled adult content, but might not be appropriate for a second grader to read the synopsis. So again, you would just have to not give them their username and password to search on their own. And I'm sorry, we have gone over time. If you have to drop off, feel free. I'll try to answer these questions, get through them if you can stay on, but it will be in the recording. Someone asked, will human narrated books eventually have the option to listen to them on the Bookshare app? So the human narrated books are all audio files, and the Bookshare app pulls from a digital text file. I know you can listen to them on the Dolphin Easy Reader mobile app and Voice Dream. We hope in the future that our app will be able to play that audio, but right now our app just pulls that digital text. Again, yeah, people are asking, you will get the link to the recording and the copy of the PowerPoint with the links as well. Questions about and career tech materials available in Spanish. Yes, we do have plenty of those. And even if you're not logged in, you can go onto the website and search, go to that advanced search, books on Spanish, and then you can type in, topics or look at the category list and see what's in there. So you don't have to be logged in or even registered to search that collection. We have a new TVI, new Bookshare user, welcome. Yes, you can add your students that you work with and the other teachers that support them. And once a teacher is added as a sponsor, they can then find and assign the books to those students. So really, every teacher that is working with that student should be added as a sponsor. So it's not up to one person to find and assign all those books. Someone asked, can you add teachers and students from a spreadsheet? Yes, when you go onto your member roster, you look on your My Bookshare page, the members link, there's an icon that looks like a cloud with an arrow. If you click that, it will take you to a page where you can download a roster. It's an Excel spreadsheet. You enter in the teacher information, the student information. There's tabs for each. You upload that, and that goes to our customer support team, and then they upload it into our system. And along those lines, someone's asking if you can add students via one of the roster areas. We get asked about Canvas a lot. Right now, no. Right now, we do not integrate with any learning management systems. We are exploring that. We know that would be a popular option for people to have, but right now that is not an option. Someone asked about students who are deaf or hard of hearing. Again, if they have problems with decoding or reading, you could add them. Just because someone is deaf or hard of hearing doesn't mean they might also have trouble with reading. But if they read just fine when you give them a print book, then no, they would not be eligible. It's really about the ability to ask access the grade level content if they're just given text, a traditional book or content on the screen, regardless of what else they have going on. If there's something blocking them, whether that be a learning or reading or visual impairment or physical disability, then they can be given access to Bookshare. If we don't have the book, you can request it, and on that main help and learning page, there's a button that says, how do I request a book? That takes you to the form where you fill out the book information, and we will, we do our best to get it into the collection. Someone's asking what materials are only available to students with an IEP. Those are the books that are in what's called the National Instructional Materials Access Center, the NIMAC. We have thousands and thousands of textbooks and curriculum materials in the Bookshare collection available to any Bookshare student. However, there are some publishers that have chosen not to give us their copies, the digital files of their textbooks. By law, they don't have to. Many do it because it's the right thing to do to get students who need this accessibility to get the content. There are some, not going to name names, but who have not. But by law, they have to make copies of their textbooks and curriculum materials available to the National Instructional Materials Access Center, the NIMAC. That is under special education law. If the district has purchased a textbook, other curriculas from this publisher, they have to then provide a copy to the Instructional Materials Access Center. There's some nuances of the law, We encourage districts when you are doing your contracts with the publishers and purchasing, hard copy physical materials or curriculum, to have language in there ensuring that they will add it. Sometimes they, there's some, like any law legislation, there's some loopholes, but a lot of districts now, they add that language that they must make that available to the NIMAC. But many do it regardless. If the district purchases, they do it. There's a process. They send the NIMAC a specific type of file format that is an accessible file that can be converted to audio, digital text, Braille, etc. So I think it's 40 of the 50 states. For students who have IEPs, if you search the collection and you find a textbook, it might say NIMAC restricted. If it says NIMAC restricted, that is only then can be given to a student with an IEP. If you're in one of the states that Bookshare is what's called an authorized user, you just assign it to the student as any other book you would. They log in, they have access to the book. There's a handful of states who require teachers to go through their state NIMAC coordinator. Every state has one. And the teacher makes the request to that NIMAC coordinator. The NIMAC coordinator facilitates getting the book. You can tell them, I have a student who's Bookshare. They have an IEP. They need this textbook that is only available through the NIMAC. They contact the NIMAC. They say, please make it available to Bookshare. And then it happens all behind the scene. And then it can be a couple days for that to happen. And then you can get it directly through Bookshare. But you do have to involve that state level person. But again, a lot of the books that are in the NIMAC, we have non-NIMAC versions in our collection. But there are some that we just don't have and are not able to get that digital copy. Or if we do have it, we have scanned it in, which sometimes loses the images and charts and graphs. So, people say it's not fair that only students with IEPs can get those books, but right now, special education law is written, but over the years, I know educators have lobbied Department of Education to get that changed. There's another question, a student inquired about how the page numbers are different from the hard textbooks when citing the textbook. So we have sometimes multiple versions of the same title, different copyright, different editions. To have that page number consistency, you search the collection and, search by ISBN. That will ensure it should have the same page numbers and chapters and so forth. In the Bookshare Reader, under the text tab, when you're the settings, there's a checkbox to say show page numbers. It's not checked by default, so it won't be checked. The student can check it, and then that page number will appear, and then they can say, oh, I read this on page 2 or so forth. Those are great questions. Here are the links. You'll get a copy of the presentation and the recording. We have our wonderful Bookshare customer support team who answers the phone 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. Pacific time. You can also email them. There's the email and the link and the telephone number. They can help you with account questions, device questions, anything that might come up. Sometimes teachers are added on one account, and then maybe they leave that school or they go to teach at a new district. Or they move within the district and they get added to their school account, and it will say email in use. Unfortunately, your teachers and students can't easily be transferred between accounts, but you might just need to call the customer support, and they can delete you from your old account and get you added to the new account. So they can help with a wide variety of issues or questions you might have. There's my email. If you have any questions, you can certainly feel free reach out to me. I'm happy to help. And again, if you are looking for the more Bookshare in-depth overview, where you show, how to add a student, add sponsors, find and assign books, stay tuned for the Bookshare 101 webinar. I want to say it's September 5th, but it might be changed. But again, stay tuned. We can include that information in the email that goes out. Someone asked again to show you where the ABCs are. That's under that Help Center link. Scroll down, featured learning articles, and it's right there under the picture. There's the ABCs. And again, that is the great resource for kind of everything you want to do Bookshare. So I hope I was able to answer the questions. Again, thank you all for joining. I'll leave with my email address on there. When the webinar ends, you should receive just immediately a link to a very quick survey. I think it's like 3 or 4 questions. If you could fill that out, I'd really appreciate it. It just helps us continuously improve our trainings. And also there's a box you can write in questions, comments, feedback, anything you like. So again, thank you all for joining. I really appreciate you taking the time to join us today, and happy back to school.